Nancy Mace has been elected to a full term in the South Carolina House of Representatives to represent House District 99. In this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I speak exclusively with her one-on-one. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. Representative Nancy Mace, it's so good to see you.
Good to see you again, as always.
I appreciate it, and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
From Tuesday to now, I know you've been getting a lot of calls.
Yeah.
Where are you emotionally?
I'm very humbled. I'm excited, first of all. I didn't sleep at all Tuesday night because, we exceeded expectations. I was expecting, a huge blue wave, particularly in Charleston County, to come through and sort of wipe out a portion of the electorate. But that's not what happened in my race. And so, for me, it was very exciting to see that hard work does pay off, and people are paying attention right now, and they're getting out and voting. And so Tuesday night was deeply humbling for me as well, that people have the confidence in me to do this job.
And I know that when you talked about the blue wave earlier, obviously your Democratic challenger, Gibson, actually called you right after your victory.
She did.
What was that like?
Very classy. I've had several opponents in the last year because I've had 4 elections, and not everyone has called me after. And so what I told her, and I've expressed this in publicly as well and privately, is that it takes a lot of courage to run for political office, and as a working mom, it's even tougher to put yourself out there, to put your ideas and your positions out there, and then affirm those ideas and positions through voters and everything. And so it's a big risk to put yourself out there and to be criticized constantly. But I applauded her for making the effort. She worked very hard, and she's a very classy woman.
Very nice lady indeed. Mm-hmm. You talk about ideas and obviously purposes. What are your ideas right now, and what are your purposes when you go to Columbia?
Well, I want to continue the job that I started in January when I was initially elected in the special election. Right. Infrastructure being the number one issue that folks are very frustrated with at all levels of government right now with public officials. The second issue would be the nuclear power plant mess. We still have to tackle some issues with the Public Service Commission and oversight and accountability. The SCANA, next on the table will be Santee Cooper. Do we sell, do we not sell? Third and fourth would be education reform and environmental issues. Those are, I believe, the top 4 issues. There are a couple of other pieces of legislation that I am party to that I want to see through this coming session that I believe need to be passed. One is an anti-child luring bill that I drafted with Representative Lee Hewitt. If you've read the news in the last year, there have been a couple of incidents in Mount Pleasant and downtown Charleston most recently where an attempt to lure a child into a vehicle occurred, and our law enforcement doesn't have the tools necessary to be able to interrogate and arrest those individuals and bring them in. It's not against the law, apparently. And so we need to fix our laws, and we need to give law enforcement the tools that they need to be most successful. And so that is a bill that Lee and I are pre-filing in December. The next piece of legislation that I believe needs to happen in 2019 is going to be medical marijuana, non-smokable medical marijuana. 31 other states have just approved it. We are behind. There are so many people that could use it and need it. If we don't, and I believe if we don't pass it in 2019, this coming session, we're not going to have an opportunity to pass it again until 2021. Because in 2020, everyone who's elected is up for re-election in 2020. Your state senators, your state house reps, everybody is up for re-election. I think it'll be very difficult to get it past that year. So I'm going to work very hard to try and get it out of committee, out of 3M this year, and try and get it to a vote on the floor.
And you talk about infrastructure. Where are we right now with the future of the Wanda Bridge?
I have a meeting with the Department of Transportation this month, and I'm going to give folks an update. All lanes on the westbound bridge are reopened. The faulty cable was replaced, and 2 new cables were built in for redundancy. The truck lane on the eastbound side is still shut down. They are still monitoring and doing, I think, a few adjustments and repairs there, but I'm going to have an update for folks sometime later this month. I still have questions for DOT. I wrote a long letter with several questions this summer, and only half of those were responded to. I'm still waiting to hear back on our spending. We know where the money's coming from. We know the funding and where it's coming from and how much. But what I want to know is by what region is the spending happening, because I believe down here with the economic development, the growth of population, the tourism, the bridges, the environment, it's much more expensive to, one, develop infrastructure, but to maintain it. What we learned about the Wando Bridge is that it really hadn't, maintenance-wise, had not been happening since the time the bridge was built. And those decks were never even sealed after it was built. So, it's easy to point the finger and blame, but for that issue, this is a decades-long issue with DOT. So that's number one. We've got widening of roads happening. 526 is supposed to be getting finished. But is that enough? And I think that we have to take a step back. We're behind in infrastructure because of all the growth and development we've had. We're far behind. But I believe as a community, our municipalities, our cities, our counties, our state, we need to take a step back and take more of a macro view of infrastructure and how we're building out our towns and cities and counties, because it would be great that if you lived in Mount Pleasant, in one area, or on Daniel Island or Hanahan or wherever you lived, that you didn't have to leave. Everything was right there. So you wouldn't have to get on I-26 every day or 526, et cetera. And so I think we need to take a step back and look at how we're doing this and try to get more cars off the road. And some of that will be public transportation, but also I think it's, where are we developing and how do we make it easier so that you don't ever have to leave your community or don't have to go far to get to schools, to get to work, to get to the store, all of that. And so until we have that perspective, I think we're still going to struggle.
What is your perspective on public transportation?
Well, we don't use enough of it. We have it, and we waste a lot of money on it. We spend a lot of money on it, and people don't use it. And we don't have a rail system. There's so much more, and I don't know if we have the land to be able to do that, but it would be great if you could do that.
And I know you talked earlier about Hanahan. Obviously, Kristie Ray was the new mayor.
She is.
How would you work with her as state representative?
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. Hanahan is in my district,
Right.
and we talked yesterday on the phone, and whatever Hanahan needs, I'm there. Same for Mount Pleasant. I have a good relationship with Will Haney, the mayor of Mount Pleasant. The city of Charleston, I have John Tecklenburg is another mayor. I have 3 mayors in my district.
Yeah.
So fortunately, I've been able to develop good relationships with everyone, and I look forward to working with them in the future.
And I know you are you work across the party lines all the time. How will you work with Congressman-elect Joe Cunningham?
Well, he's at the federal level, and I'm at the state level. And so there's a difference there, but I think that, the issues that we have down in the low country in Charleston specifically, related to infrastructure, that's an issue where we're going to need help at the federal level. Also, when we talk about offshore drilling, which none of us want, one of the first things I did when I was elected in January was write or draft up legislation and filed it that was against offshore drilling. But, the states have certain rights, and you've got the federal government sort of involved in that, where Florida received a waiver and exemption, but South Carolina did not. Every coastal town and mayor on our coast doesn't want it. And so those are 2 issues, I think, where we can work together on improving the quality of life for folks down here.
And what is the quality of life right now for House District 99?
It's great. We live in the best city in the world right now, and I love Charleston. We have a $20 billion tourism economy here, and we all know that when visitors come, they never want to leave. So I do think we have a good quality of life, but there are always ways to improve. I think that our schools and education can be vastly improved. We don't have enough trade, and when I talk to folks at the port, or I talk to manufacturing companies or distributors, et cetera, there's a certain talent pool that we're missing, whether it's technology, whether it's individuals with their CDLs or commercial driver's licenses. We do have pockets where industry is bringing in people from outside the state. And what we want to have and ensure here is that people inside our state, in Charleston, have the opportunity to apply for those jobs as they come open. So,
And when I talk with you for Quintin Close-Ups a year from now, what will you tell me about State Representative Nancy Mace?
well, I hope that I am continuing the conversation and that I am accomplishing what I said I was going to do, that I'm working on those goals, those top 3 to 5 pieces that I believe are most important to folks here in the country.
State Representative Nancy Mace, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Of course, anytime.
Yeah, appreciate it.